Fear is designed to shut us down. Fear is designed that the enemy uses to make us not witness to a person that's ready to hear the gospel. Fear is designed for us to not use our gifts that God has intended for us to work in that situation. The enemy is trying to scare us through fear and make us second guess what God has already told us to do.
Welcome to the Restore Go podcast, where we discover ways to restore our relationship with God and others. Now, here are your co-hosts, Biblical Therapist Pete Thompson and Biblical Coach Lynne Thompson. Together, let's learn how to restore go.
Welcome to Restore Go. I'm Biblical Therapist Pete Thompson.
And I'm Biblical Coach Lynne Thompson. And today we're going to talk about something that many of our clients have come in and said, you know what, I've got to deal with this, or it's going to really have a negative impact on my life. It's the thing that keeps you up at night. It's the thing that puts you in fight-flight mode. It's the thing that rattles you so badly that your body aches. And basically, it's fear. We have to overcome fear and its disastrous consequences. You know, fear is defined as a strong emotion in a response to a perceived danger, real or imagined. But Pete, sometimes fear is a useful emotion, right? I mean, if you're in danger, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, if you're out camping in the woods or whatever, and you run into the bear family, not with the family that has the last name Bear,
not the Yogi Bear family,
but the actual true bears with a mama bear, papa bear, and baby bears. And so it's really important that the fight or flight system be triggered, because it allows you very quickly to think and act in a way that promotes your safety.
Right. And they've done studies, and they found that when you go into fight or flight mode, you have a heightened sense of smell, you have a heightened sense of thought process. I mean, that's why you'll see people be able to do things that they never thought possible under normal circumstances.
Yes.
But that fight-flight mode and its adrenaline rush, you know, all of it that goes into it, the blood pressure increase, everything, that's what helps you to respond. But I know that you've talked about clients that stay in fight-flight mode all the time, or at least a majority of the time, and that it affects their health. And we're not just even talking mental health, right?
It affects their physical health. And the idea that God designed it for us to be in it, maybe 2 or 3 times a week for about 25 minutes when there's a true perceived danger.
Right.
But the problem is our bodies don't know the difference between the true perceived danger and a friendly visit from the IRS that wants to help us with our taxes or all sorts of other stressful things like a job interview or a job evaluation that will trigger the fight or flight response as well.
Well, I know that you said it affects the immune system. How does it affect our immune system?
It affects it because the fight or flight response, it has to draw energy from other parts of our body to be as effective as God designed it to be. So it has to shut down or put on hold the immune system because it needs to draw the resources that the immune system normally uses to have the body be able to do what it does in fight or flight. And so the obvious reaction to immune system on hold can be catastrophic because we're not able to fight off all the germs and viruses in a healthy way that God designed our bodies to do. And so we get sick easier and we stay sick longer. And with COVID and other things going out there, that could be far-reaching consequences for our lives.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. There was so much fear that was generated during COVID. I wonder how much of that fear actually kept people from healing their bodies, allowing their bodies to be able to heal itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You also talk about the fact that it affects the digestive system, and you'll hear people, they were up all night with indigestion and things like that. Sometimes it is because you ate that extra piece of pizza that you weren't supposed to eat, but sometimes fear plays a part in digestive.
Well, yeah, because a lot of us are very careful to what we eat. We're very meticulous about what we put in our body because we know there's a consequence, a good and a negative consequence. But if the fight or flight response is going on, it puts our immune system kind of on hold because it puts our digestive system on hold. And as a result, when you're running from a bear, it doesn't matter if you fully digested that wonderful cheeseburger that you ate because all your energy is focused on getting to a safe place.
Yeah.
Away from the bear. And so the digestive system will go on hold. And so the body usually takes 18 to certain number of hours each day to fully digest the food and grab the nutrients of that food. And if our bodies aren't allowed to do that, we might as well be eating really bad fast food as our main source of nutrition because we're not able to grab all the nutrients when our digestive system goes on hold.
But this is not an encouragement to eat fast food.
No, definitely not. No.
This is the idea that you don't want to be in bear mode all the time.
Exactly.
Because your body's going, I need to be in bear mode. I don't have time to digest food.
Or I'm worried about all these types of things going on that keeps you in the fight or flight mode and has really negative effects for your ability to effectively process your food.
I know sometimes you've said it can even affect reproduction.
Yes, because that's also a very powerful part of our body. That fight or flight response will grab resources from the reproductive system. And so I've run across a lot of couples over the years that are young couples. They want to have kids, but both of them have these really high-powered, a lot of responsibility jobs where they live with the phone next to their ear and they're handling a lot of difficult things constantly. And so their body stays in the fight or flight response, and it impacts their ability to have the children that they're ready for and they're stable and everything they're ready to have, but they're having difficulty getting pregnant because of that.
Interesting. So it seems like every generation has things that elicit the fear response. I mean, we've had wars, famines, diseases. There are things like threats and crimes. What do you see in your office today with fear that has changed from previous generations that had fear issues?
Well, a lot of those issues in our past, the wars that go on and all those things were very much a part of life. And now we live in an information age where those things are right on our desktop via social media. And so the same effect of living close to something has the same effect of social media, seeing the terrible stuff that's going on in Rwanda, the terrible stuff that's going on in Iran, and other really terrible things that people suffer on this planet with. And by bringing that on a daily dose via social media or doom scrolling or whatever you want to call it, it's triggering our systems through vicarious trauma, other people's trauma that's affecting us. It turns on our fight or flight response.
That's so interesting because in a way you're borrowing trouble from other people.
Exactly. And so I would always warn people that I know, be careful what you consume on social media, because even though it's in a distant land, you watching the pictures and hearing the stories and the eyewitness accounts, you're bringing that into your mind and into your world, and it is affecting you.
Well, we've even talked about how really the way news works these days, we really were meant to love our neighbor, the ones that we're in contact with, that live in our community, maybe even our state. But our world is so much bigger where we're taking on the heartaches and the sorrows, like you're saying, of the entire world, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, you could give yourself PTSD every day if you wanted to, right? Hey friends, let's be honest. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to find a Christian therapist that's true to your values. Pete Thompson knows that.
As a licensed therapist, he is committed to providing godly counsel, introducing helpful tools battling everyday problems like anxiety, addictions, as well as marriage and parenting challenges. Give Pete a call to set up your next confidential appointment online or in the office. Visit PeteThompson.org. Again, that's PeteThompson.org.
That's what vicarious trauma turns into. If we have enough of it and it's frequently enough, we could gather that same PTSD that other people are living through because we're watching and we're taking in this material that's very troubling and very heartbreaking.
Interesting. Well, we know that fear has existed since the beginning of man. I mean, if you look at the scriptures, you see that every time an angel shows up, do not fear, do not fear. So fear is part of our human psyche. But plenty of people in the Bible who experienced fear. I mean, we see the prophet Elijah was afraid of getting killed by an evil queen. After a great miracle, he defeated the prophets of Baal. He comments saying, I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the sons of Israel have forsaken your covenant, tore down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they seek my life to take it away. I mean, he was kind of in a fearful place where he's like, they're all going to come after me. There's no one left, which really wasn't even true, which that's kind of what fear does. Doesn't it blow things up bigger than the reality?
Yeah, and even God had to tell him that, yes, I have 7,000 men or that haven't sacrificed to Baal, and I have this and I have that. And so fear is designed to shut us down. Fear is designed that the enemy uses to make us not witness to a person that's ready to hear the gospel. Fear is designed for us to not use our gifts that God has intended for us to work in that situation. The enemy is trying to scare us through fear and make us second guess what God has already told us to do.
That is so good. That brings me to Exodus 14, when you have the Hebrews backed up against the Red Sea, right, with no escape. But Moses said to the people, do not fear. Stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will never see them again forever. I mean, here they are in an impossible situation, which talk about fight or flight. It literally is flight mode. And they're going, what are we going to do? And Moses is reminding them, do not fear. The Lord is going to fight this for you. And I think in the middle of fear, that's what you forget. You feel like you're alone. You feel like there's no hope and it's all just going to end badly. And the Lord shows up in mighty ways and says, no, do not be afraid. The Lord is going to work on your behalf.
And the idea of remembering what God has done, and we look at chapter 4 of Joshua, where he commanded, the priests were commanded to take the ark and start walking in the Jordan River, which was at flood state at that time, which was a very scary, it's not kind of the quiet little Jordan River that Jesus was baptized in. It was a raging torrent. They were commanded to do that. But once they stepped out on faith, God did miraculous things. And God commands us in that passage to tell all future generations, to constantly remind ourselves and teach this to all future generations, because when we remember what God has done and we keep a record of what God has done in our lives and our families, that helps us battle the fear, because the truth always takes out the fear.
Yes, I love that. So going on in scripture too, we have David and Goliath, right? It says, again, the Philistine said, this is Goliath, I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that we might fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. So here you have group fear, right? And that's a thing, right? Where one person's fearful, so we should all be fearful. And how brave was David to not get into group think and to do the fear?
Yeah, he showed up one day and he heard this Goliath person saying all these crude things about God and about Israel, and he you know, God used that anger and that boldness. I mean, and this is a shepherd boy that already took out a lion and took out a bear. And so he was not afraid of anything because he knew that God had already done things in his life. And so this is just another obstacle that God is going to use him to take care of.
Yeah, exactly. Another passage where they're fearful, Matthew 14:25. When the disciples saw him, Jesus, walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. And I think when we look at fear, I think sometimes we get afraid because God does things that are miraculous. He does things that are very different. And when God is working and it's not in our realm of understanding, like, oh my goodness, things look very out of control. And, I'll be the first to say that there's been times where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is out of control. And I have to stop myself and go, wait. This is not a surprise to God. He knew this was coming. He's in control of the situation, even though I'm not in control of the situation. He is still in control of this situation, and he is a miracle-making, water-walking God who can go forward and do things that we can't even imagine.
Uh-huh. And he's already seen all these things because God is outside of time. He's already seen all these things. And so it's our job to lean into what he's providing and the memories so that we can be obedient to what he's calling us to do at that moment that might seem way beyond anything we can imagine, but God has already been there.
Yep. I was looking at all of these scenarios and I thought, what do these scenarios have in common, these different events that occurred in history? And I looked at it, and God acted and became the victor in every single one of these situations. Elijah was triumphant over Jezebel. The Red Sea was parted, and Goliath was defeated by a little shepherd boy with a rock. And Peter joined Jesus and walked on the water with him. So what does this say about how the Bible handles fear? When these people are all fearful, what is God doing?
God is taking control. Again, the enemy tries to instill fear to shut down us doing what God has already commanded us to do. And so as we lean on God and say, God, I don't understand, but I understand that you want me to do this. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I have faith based on what you've already done and what you've already had me do, that you can handle this. You can move this mountain. I can't. You can move this mountain.
I think it's interesting in the Bible where there's also verses where we are commanded to fear God in the Bible. In Proverbs 1:7, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. And then in Matthew 10:28, it's Jesus who says, do not fear those who kill the body but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both body and soul in hell. I mean, it sounds like the only one we really have permission to fear is God.
Because when we fear God, that starts our really healthy respect for the creator of everything. We don't do anything without his authority. There's everything was created by him. And so to have that respect rather than, well, God's my best friend and we hang out sometimes and
he's cool. He's cool.
And he is kind of my Santa Claus. I ask him for stuff or my genie and he does it. No, we serve at his behest. Our lives exist at his behest. And so when we have that healthy fear that God, you've created everything, what do you want me to do today? And guide me in doing whatever you've called me to do, and I will do it.
I remember I used to have this magnet on our refrigerator, and it used to say, you alone, O Lord, are the only one worthy of my fear. And it really used to help me put things in perspective, because I thought, when I start fearing situations, when I start fearing people, when I start fearing, whatever it is, other than God, I have actually elevated that fear above the one true God.
And the reality it's so much better to fear God who doesn't change. He's the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. When we fear people opinions, they change, and it's so hard.
One day it's Hosanna, and the next day it's crucified.
Exactly. And if we're fearing people, we're going to go on this huge roller coaster up and down based on someone's opinion that day and how they slept the night before. But
and what they ate.
Yeah, but God is the same. And so when we get on track with him and respect and fear him and all the mighty wonders that he created, then we're at a place where we can be obedient, and we put the energy into being obedient because we know that he's in charge of it all.
Yes. When I used to talk to my author friends about, scary books and movies, we talk about the big lie that in secular books and secular movies, it seems like evil and Satan actually have more power than they actually do. And that's what tries to get you afraid, because it's like, oh, you need to be fearful because even God can't, fight against evil. It's almost that. And yet, we know there's power in the heavenly places that exists, but 1 John 4:4 tells us as Christians, you are from God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. Those truths mean that God and also the Holy Spirit, which is in us, is greater than anything this world can dish out.
And we have to remember, and it's a really interesting lesson to go into the Old Testament and look at Job and look at the first 2 chapters of Job and listen to how Satan had to ask permission for God to do anything to Job.
Yes.
And so that is a true test of God's power. The enemy has to ask permission, and God gave him permission to do some things and refused to give him permission to do others. And so that's how we understand God's true power, that even our enemy who hates us and hates God still has to ask God's permission to cause trials or difficulties in our lives. He has to ask God for that.
Yeah. I remember one of the chapters in my book, While We Wait, a devotional for those who love the prodigal. I talk about sometimes we almost feel threats like, oh, guess what I'm going to do to you if you do something for the Lord? Those are, again, fears that try to stop us from doing the Lord's work. And I remember the Lord just so clearly saying, I alone am in charge of your suffering. And that's such a peaceful place to be, because whatever suffering comes into my life, it has gone, like you said, like Job, it's gone through the hands of God. And I am only going to experience what the Lord will allow me to experience. And he loves me, and he has good in mind for me, and he has a plan.
Not so much suffering that it overwhelms us and shuts us down, but not too little suffering that doesn't get us to move in the direction God is calling us to move into.
Right. And therein lies the fear of God, that I want to be in line of what you have for me.
Yes.
Because you're worthy of the fear, not I'm scared of you, but I know that you're all powerful and I need to submit to that.
And I know that you have the best things in mind for me.
What are some practical things you tell your clients to do to help them overcome fear?
One of the exercises that I do, I call it it turns off the fight or flight response. It's like a master switch on a circuit board that you flip the switch and it actually turns off the fight or flight response for a while. It starts with breathing, and it starts with a very slow, quiet breathing, slowly and quietly in through your nose and slowly and quietly out through your mouth. And as you're doing that breathing that way, it's signaling to your body that everything's okay. And so it slows your heart rate, it slows your blood pressure. 2 very useful tools when I go see the doctor, so that she doesn't tell me all these things about my diet or all this other stuff I have to do. So I've used it for years.
Because I'm not there to tell.
Exactly. And so the breathing signals to your body that everything's okay. Now, to also deal with turning off the fight or flight, you have to be focusing on some either really enjoyable experiences or vacations that you've had, or you meditate on what God is, how he's taking care of you. And both of those things, because we have to think of something. We can't just have our minds go blank. So by thinking on great experiences or how God has taken care of us recently, it's almost like it puts a helmet of protection around our brain so that our bodies can fully relax and get back to normal functioning. And so I teach all my clients that will let me, I teach them that breathing and focusing tool so that they have a tool in their tool belt when they're starting to get anxious, things that they can do.
That's so good. And it does work, because I have done that before too. And it puts you in another place, and it puts you within the realm of really what the Lord is doing, as he's, like you said, he almost has his wings like around you, protecting you.
Yeah.
So what happens to clients that don't deal with fear? Like, where does this go?
Well, some people say, well, I'm just a chronic worrier, or I have chronic fear.
Like it's part of their character DNA or something.
Yeah, fear ages you. It wears you out faster. It makes everything from aging to it affects your organs, because as you're living in fight or flight response, they're not fully getting all the resources designed to go where they are in your body. You're not digesting things adequately. You're stressed out, and there's all kinds of hormone chemicals that are being released. You have weight gain, and you don't sleep well at night because you're living under this constant fear of dread that God does not intend for you to live under. He intends for us to have an abundant life and live in a peaceful way as best as we can.
It's so funny. I kind of got to see someone in real life who lives this, I thought, pretty well, just because our son was introducing me to someone recently, and he sat next to us at an event. And later I said, so is he like, did you meet him like in the young adults group, or he's like, what are you saying? And I said, well, he's your age. And he said, no, Mom, he's 40. And I'm like, wait, what? No, I thought he was way younger than you. Like, our son's in his 20s. And this guy is just like, I go, well, whatever he's taking, that's what I want to take. Yeah. Because whatever he's doing, it's the right thing. I mean, he literally looked so young. And David said something really interesting. He said, yeah, he has no worries. And I thought, whoa.
Everybody has worries, but he's deciding to let God help him channel the worry and the fear. And it's easier on his system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So forget the Botox. Maybe it's more breathing and trusting the Lord.
Yeah. And recounting what God has done, because as we recount, because every time he confronted Israel in the Old Testament, he always said, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I brought you out of Egypt. I helped you. I gave you the promised land. And he's going through all the promises to remind them of what he did. And finally, when they hear all the promises, it's like, yes, God, we've fallen away. We've walked far from you. And they get back in a right state of God because they see everything that he's done.
I love that. That is a good place to live in. So I thought we'd do something really interesting for our listeners today. I was going to let you practice. Now, if you're driving, just keep your eyes on the road. But I thought it would be nice to try this breathing activity that Pete is talking about, where you can just breathe in through your nose slowly and out through your mouth slowly, and do that as I read. And I was going to give you, like Pete said, you need to not just do the breathing, but send your mind to a good place. And I can't think of a better place to send our minds than in the Word of God.
Yeah.
So I was going to read Psalm 27, 1-6. So I'll let you start your breathing, listeners. And here's the Word of God. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evildoers come upon me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumbled and fell. Though a host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war arise against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident. One thing I have asked from the Lord, that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to meditate in his temple. For in the day of trouble, he will conceal me in his tabernacle. In the secret place of his tent, he will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock. And now my head will be lifted up above my enemies around me. And I will offer in his tent sacrifices and shouts of joy. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Amen. Well, before we go today, I'd like to offer our listeners a free resource titled Fight, Flight, Breathe. If you visit our website at petethompson.org, petethompson.org, you'll find our email at the bottom of that page. Just ask for your free copy of Fight, Flight, Breathe, and we will send you that at no charge. So thank you for listening to our podcast today. And if you'd like to be alerted when we drop another podcast, which we do every Wednesday, please follow or like and subscribe. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you for listening to the Restore Go podcast. Now, Restore Go is produced by Pete Thompson Christian Counseling. Pete is a licensed therapist who offers affordable family and individual counseling in North Texas and online throughout the United States. Pete provides counseling from a biblical perspective. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and visit us at petethompson.org.